Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. Enzo Maresca wants to change his ways. He also talks about the centre-back situation and his relationship with Garnacho. Chelsea have held talks with Upamecano, and Tosin could be leaving Chelsea at the end of the season. Now, of course, I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 15k by the end of the season. You can also use the new YouTube hype feature, which pushes this video out to a bigger audience. Kicking things off, Kieran Gill has reported that after the Sunderland loss, Enzo Maresca set his analysts a new task. He asked them to look over last season's losses to sides who set up in this way for clues. In particular, he wants to find out new ways in which they can break down those stubborn sides who place bodies behind the ball. Bobby Vincent has reported what Enzo Maresca said about the Sunderland game preparation. He said, "I watched 9 Sunderland games before ours. They never started with a back 5, so I prepared to face a back 4. Then they started a back 5 against us. In the changing room before the players go out for a warm-up, I need to tell the players, guys, all the Sunderland preparation, put it in the rubbish, and in 10 minutes I need to change our plan. This is difficult for the players. The thing that we need to improve and we need to learn, it's something that I'm saying to the players every day, is now that teams, probably because of what we achieved last season, teams have changed against us." Now, I appreciate the honesty from Enzo Maresca here, and obviously we've seen what he said in this press conference. This is after the embargo for what's been said. There's like a certain percentage that's released beforehand and then certain after. I don't know why they do that. And then obviously the other report suggesting that he's set his analysts a new task of how to face against these teams, how we can break them down in new ways. So I like the learning curve. I like that he's being proactive about it. But there's just one little thing that kind of screams out to me is if teams now rock up to Stamford Bridge, or we go to these teams and we're prepared in a certain way, and they switch their tactics just before the games, Enzo Maresca is basically saying, we have no plan B, like we have no way of combating that. We plan all week for one thing, so if they just change it right before the game, we're screwed. And I don't really know how to think about that, because obviously he's a manager, he's there to manage things and analyse things, and he has his team around him and he prepares all week, and I get that. But not being able to play against a back 5, not being able to play against a low block. We know a lot of teams are starting to set up that way. A lot of teams are starting to use the long throws. And I like the fact that Maresca is trying to adapt and he's got his analysts on it. Like, that is a huge plus and a bonus, because he is trying to learn and adapt and evolve. And that's exactly what we need to be doing. He's not being stubborn and saying we are going to play our way regardless. He's like, okay, cool. These are new things. We need to adapt. Let's do that quickly. But like I said, if you rock up to a, I don't know, any other team and they go, right, 10 minutes before, we're just going to switch everything and do something we've never done, and they know that, like, you know, in their preparation, and we have no answer for it, isn't that a little bit worrying? I know that you can't plan for absolutely everything, but you have to surely have a plan A and a plan B. You know, a plan A of this is what we want to do. However, if they do play a back 5, we now have an answer for that. I think that that's been going on quite a while, and it reminds me of what Arne Slot said a few weeks ago, and everyone ridiculed him because he was like, well, you know, this team never plays that way, so, you know, we didn't know who was going to be in the lineup and stuff, and it felt very excusey. Now, I'm not saying that it does sound excusey with Enzo Maresca. I think he's being very honest here, and I do respect that. But it kind of, I don't know, it just shows a bit of a hole in his game in terms of like, well, you know, we planned this way, they changed it, what do you want us to do? Well, so you're the manager, you should have a plan B, and this isn't a new tactic that's just all of a sudden come up. This is something that happened a lot last season. This is something that's continuing to happen with more teams this season. Now, I understand it's difficult to play against a back 5. I understand it's difficult to break down a back 5 or a low block. I understand that because of the systems, and it's not just us, it's other teams in the league. It's very hard to play that. I completely understand that. But other teams are able to break it down. Other teams are able to batter through that back 5. Other teams are still able to get the result. But Chelsea genuinely look like we are stumped and we have no ideas. No ideas from Maresca, no ideas from the players. And we're all just kind of knocking the ball about going, well, what's next? What are we actually meant to be doing here? No one's got the answer. What questions are we asking of the opposition right now? So I really like the proactiveness about it, like I said. But like, it also kind of showcases a little bit of a hole of like, you know, all you need to do to upset Chelsea is change your tactics, you know, just before the game. And if they've already got that set up and they know that's what they're going to do, it's an easy 3 points. Maybe I'm reading into it a bit too much, but one thing I do like I said, is his willingness to evolve, his willingness to learn, and his honesty of just saying, like, this is the situation. I watched 9 games, they didn't play a back 5, and then all of a sudden they play a back 5 against us. And I kind of feel like, yeah, I get it to a degree, but I don't know, maybe we should have that extra plan, the more flexible plan against back 5 specifically. So if it does come up, we can go, right, boys, switch into this is what we're doing, and they go, all right, sweet, we know what the game plan is. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. I would love to know your thoughts regarding Enzo Maresca's comments, the fact that he's getting his analysts to study back fives and our previous losses last season against teams that set up very similarly to then find new answers. Do you think this is going to help, or do you think that Maresca needs to shake up the entire system? Chelsea recently did an interview with Enzo Maresca and he speaks about the centre-back situation, and he says, for sure, the moment that you have two central defenders, for instance, last season we played the first 5 or 6 months with Wes and Levi Colwill. It's good because of the combination and they can grow together. But in this moment, we are trying to rotate, and for sure, slowly, we are getting better. But for consistency, it's always better in any aspect, for the players, for the team, for anyone. He then goes on to talk about Josh Ashington, and he says, we are happy with the way that he's improving and the way that he's working every day. But I have been since I arrived, to be honest. If you look back in the last season, in pre-season in the USA, he played 45 minutes of the first game. So since day one, I really like Josh. So I hope he feels trusted and part of the group more than what we are showing to him. It's difficult to play in the Champions League and to play from the start in the Premier League, so we show him trust and confidence. Now, I really like this because I totally agree. I've said many times across this season and even over the summer that when you go back to the start of last season where Chelsea started relatively well, we were picking up points and we were blowing teams away, and then all of a sudden we went through this weird plateau where we couldn't win for toffee. In that good period, we had Levi Colwill and Wesley Fofana, and at the start of the season it looked very shaky. But as the games went on, they got better and better and better, and up until Fofana got injured, that game specifically, that partnership was solid. You know, when it first started, you had the overcommitment of either Colwill or Fofana, which left spaces in behind whoever went forward, and we got punished by that. But as the partnership got better, that hole got very tight, and it wasn't existent anymore. And we were getting them line-breaking passes. We had the recovery pace of Fofana. They worked very well together. And it's unfortunate that Fofana got injured for such a long period of time. But then when we were starting to throw other defenders in to partner Levi Colwill, Colwill had adapted so much and he developed across last season that he become that mainstay, he become that staple. And I think that was Maresca's sort of game plan from day one. These are the centre-backs I want as my first choice centre-back pairing. It's very evident that that's what he wants, and he's been very unlucky with injuries for both players. Now, Levi Colwill had the advantage over someone like Josh Ashington, for example, because he played a whole season with Thiago Silva. That is huge in terms of leadership, experience, and just learning the game from one of the generational talents like Thiago Silva. And I like the fact that Enzo Maresca from day one is just like Josh Ashington, the way he works. They trust him as a player. He tries to give him minutes. And this is his breakout season. I feel like it is. I feel like Enzo Maresca is completely correct in saying that it is hard to play Champions League and Premier League. He is very young, Josh Ashington. He does need to be trusted. I feel like he is being trusted more and more. He's playing more minutes, and that's only going to get better. But obviously, Enzo Maresca likes to protect his players. So it's having that balance of rotation of who's available, who's suspended, and who's fit to play. And, I feel like Josh Ashington's going to really crack on and really go forward this season. And if you look at the situation between Colwill having Thiago Silva to learn from, this season Josh Ashington's experience is Chalobah and Tosin. Potentially Badiashile, potentially Reece James on that right-hand side, right? Which is still a lot of experience combined, but it's not Thiago Silva. Because Thiago Silva is just on a different level, right? We can all agree on that. But it is very good that Josh is being trusted and playing more time. He's a fantastic defender with a lot of ability. Now, it was confirmed by Maresca that he took him off in the last game in the second half due to cramp. Now, cool. I think I can speak for most fans. I don't mind if a player's not feeling right, not 100%, then you want to take him off. Cool. Precautionary. We don't want any more injuries. But when there's that lack of transparency, or visually we can't see that there's an injury, it's just a bit like, why are you doing that? So yeah, hindsight on that type of thing. But I really like what Enzo's saying, and I feel like when it comes to the consistency side, he's 100% spot on. When you have 4, 5, 6 months with the same pairing, they're going to get better. And that's just the story. At the moment, we are basically putting in who is fit and available, and we're still experimenting on that best sort of partnership. Like I've said a few times now, I just don't think that Chalobah and Tosin can play together consistently as a good pairing. Every now and then, they're fantastic together, but most of the time, one of them either lets the other down, or is just an error or a silly mistake or an overcommitment somewhere, and they're vulnerable. They get found out. And I feel like you could have Josh Ashington as that Levi Colwill this season. I know he's very young, but he is the staple, the mainstay, because he's displaying so much more skill and so much more ability, so much more confidence and calmness on the ball than any of our centre-backs right now. Maybe that partnership is Wesley Fofana and Josh Ashington. I'd be very interested to see that partnership, and hopefully we see that, a variation of that, very, very soon, because I feel like Josh does deserve all the minutes possible. But we also understand that Enzo Maresca likes to rotate. So I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding the centre-back situation as it is. Like, do you agree with Enzo in terms of, like, he's just trying to rotate players, get people minutes, and find that pairing in the absence of Colwill and Fofana? Or is it a case of he doesn't really know who the best partnership is, and he's like, who's fit, who's not suspended, who can we play? Do you feel like he trusts Josh enough, or do you feel like he should be trusting him more? Would you be giving him more minutes, or are you very self-aware of the fact that he is young, there's a lot of games to be played, a lot of competitions, and we do need to protect him because he is currently our best centre-back? Let me know your thoughts down below. Fabrizio Romano then reported what Enzo Maresca said regarding Alejandro Garnacho. He said, Garnacho's doing well. We are trying to manage Ali since he arrived, not 100% from Manchester United. He is working hard every day and he is getting better and better. And in this moment, we are happy with the way he is playing. He also reported what Garnacho said to Sports Illustrated about why he joined Chelsea. He said, when I spoke with the club and Maresca, it's important also the style of play we have. He explained a lot to me in a video call with him. It's a big chance to improve as a player in a team like Chelsea. Now, I really like this because it seems like the player and manager are pulling in the same direction. They're on the same wavelength and they're just going hard. They're just going hard. And I really like that because I've made it very abundantly clear, I think a lot of fans did over the summer, that I just wasn't interested in signing Garnacho. He wasn't a signing that excited me. However, one thing I always said is I will always back a player that wears a blue shirt until they give me a reason not to. And I also said recently, as we were starting the season, that I'm still not excited about the Garnacho signing, but I'm very, very curious to see what he can do in a Chelsea shirt, because it's abundantly clear he has talent. But a lot of people were saying he's got an attitude problem, he doesn't work hard, blah, blah, blah. And I think what we're seeing is it was more of the environment of Manchester United. Not to throw him under the bus, but they've had that with a lot of players now. Sancho, Garnacho, Rashford, you know, players that have left and found happiness at other clubs, right? Even Sancho, when he come on loan to us, he seemed to absolutely be loving his time. Now, when it comes to Garnacho and having statements like this shows me that it must have been an environmental thing. Maybe it just run its course at United and it did get a bit toxic at times, but, you know, behind the scenes. You know, he was inconsistent with his performances there, but he also showed, you know, he was, when he first come onto the scene at like 17, 18, he was really, really good. And I like the fact that he's saying, look, you know, it's important to have a style of play, and I've spoke with the manager. That's really important. I'm on the same page. I want to work hard and I want to improve as a player. Now, you can go back and see like Garnacho in Chelsea shirts as a kid and stuff, so maybe he is a fan of the club, which is amazing. But this season, to me, is still an open book for Garnacho. It's still an open book for Jamie Gittins, and I feel the same about both of these players. I really want them to do well because they wear a Chelsea shirt, and I will always back a player until they give me a reason not to, and I'll go blue in the face saying that phrase because it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to a lot of fans as well. But that doesn't mean we can't be frustrated when he doesn't perform well. Now, I do feel like Garnacho is getting sharper and sharper the more that he plays. He scored. He scored at the weekend, and he was taken off because after that goal, he did kind of fizzle out. Not just him, but a lot of our attacking prowess, because we just have no answers for the questions that the opposition were giving us in a low block and a back five. That's not specifically his fault, but he was the make weight for another substitution, but he got his goal, and it was a well-taken goal in my opinion. It was set up well by Pedro Neto and taken well by Garnacho. We also saw Jamie Gittins play very well against Ajax. He was very dangerous going forward. He was beating his man. He was oozing confidence, putting dangerous balls into the box all game. So I think it's very promising, and that's the problem we have with potential and, you know, players that need to develop, is you're not going to get that level of performance week in and week out, but you are going to see glimpses of it, and hopefully those glimpses just get closer and closer together. So I'm very interested to know your thoughts on Garnacho. Now we've had like 8 or 9 games, and we've had a couple Champions League games, we've had a couple Cup games. What are your overall thoughts? Do you feel like Garnacho can actually be a mainstay and a staple on that left-hand side? Will he improve? Or is this kind of all we're going to get from Garnacho in terms of hot and cold performances and no consistency? Because I honestly feel like he can go on to become a very consistent player at Chelsea once he settles into the system and he finds his feet. And like I said, game by game, he's looking sharper and sharper. There have been a few games where he looked a bit sluggish. I think the Ajax game was probably one of... Was it the Ajax game? I think it might have been the Ajax game. There was one game recently where he did look a bit slow off the mark. But other than that, he looks like he's getting better and better. And now he's got on the score sheet. This could do wonders for his confidence. So let me know your thoughts down below. TBR Football have reported that Chelsea, Liverpool and City have all held talks in the last few weeks over a move to sign Bayern Munich centre-back Dayot Upamecano as a free agent with his contract ending in 2026. Now, we reacted to this last week, gave my thoughts and opinions. I don't want to spend too much time on Upamecano specifically. I think he would be a fantastic signing, especially on a free. However, I do feel like January comes around and Bayern Munich have their last chance to cash in on him. And I don't think Chelsea will go put money down to buy him, but they would love to get him on a free because he'd be such a high entry free transfer. It'd be high quality free transfer, and then we can give him more wages. Now, a lot of you guys were saying that he would never play for Chelsea because we won't pay the 200 grand a week that he wants, the 250 grand a week he wants currently at Munich, which is why he won't sign the extension. And as much as I agree, I don't think we would pay him that much. He is the right age for the project. I think he's, 26-ish, 25, 26, maybe touching 27. So similar age to Tosin. So I feel like we could do with that one experienced player in there of someone who's a bit older. He's a fantastic defender. There's just no denying that. On a free transfer would be unbelievable. But because he's a free, it means he gets a sign-on bonus. It means that we can afford to pay him higher weekly wages. Do I think that Chelsea would pay $250,000 a week? No, I don't. I really don't think that. We're having them sort of conversations with Reece James and Caicedo, and I get that. They're at higher echelons and are being rewarded for their loyalty and their hard work. For a player like Upamecano to come in, who I'm not saying isn't worth that money, I just feel like Chelsea wouldn't pay it with a wage structure. For him to come in on a free and then be paid that, I think is just a bit wild, if I'm being honest. However, I feel like there may be a bit more flexibility in it because it's a free. Now, do I feel like it's going to go to a free transfer? I honestly don't. I think that Upamecano will be on his way in January to somewhere like Liverpool or City or somewhere else who are willing to put money down to, basically save Bayern Munich not losing money on their asset. But on the very small chance that it does go to a free transfer in the summer, I think Chelsea are well within the mix to sign a new centre-back. And we've spoke about this. Do we need one? Do we not? For a long time now. But when you have things like this come up, and TBR Football have reported on it, but a few other sources reported on it last week as well. There's more and more about it. It seems to have a little bit of legs on it in terms of Chelsea are interested in monitoring and asking the right questions, but they're also doing it in a way that's financially efficient for them on a free, which makes a lot of sense, right? Same with Mike Maignan. Where we didn't want to overpay the money. We're just going to hope and pray and wait, and if he is available on a free, sweet. The one thing that sticks out to me is what we reacted to in the last video about Upamecano, is there was a bottom paragraph saying that there is a lot of elite level centre-backs that are running out of contract in the summer of 2026, and there's going to be a big shift of high quality centre-backs going around Europe. And I feel like Chelsea are going to want to be in the mix of that because it's just one of those rare opportunities where a lot of players are out of contract at the same time. It very rarely happens. So there could be a lot of legs to this, and I think I would welcome Upamecano to Chelsea with open arms, my man. I would spend the money in January, depending, as long as it wasn't ludicrous money, right? But Bayern Munich may outprice themselves. We never know. But this is really interesting because I'm going to pair it with the next report, and when you put them together, it makes even more sense. All for Football Talks have reported an exclusive that Tosin is one name that may be on his way out from Chelsea in the January transfer window. Some clubs in Italy and Saudi are keeping tabs on his situation. Now, I'm going to hold my hands up and say I don't know how reliable All for Football Talks are in terms of their sources. However, this is a very interesting thing to react to when you pair it with the Upamecano one, right? Because, like I said, Bayern Munich are going to want to cash in January. It's their last opportunity to get money for him. Tosin's come under a lot of flack, and I want to say that I feel like Chelsea fans in general, not all of us, but the ones that are chronically online, we get on the backs of our players a lot, very quickly and very harshly, in my opinion. I really like Tosin. I think he's a solid, consistent defender, especially on a free transfer. He was fantastic for us last season. This season, he's been very inconsistent. I'll gladly hold my hands up, and he's had some poor performances. Again, happy to admit that. But some of the backlash that him and Trevor Chalobah are getting is honestly quite disgusting. So I just wanted to highlight that. But regardless of that, this could be one of those articles that comes out as like a, taking advantage of the situation that Tosin is in the headlines and in the crosshairs of not playing so well recently. There could be some elements of truth to this because, like I said, when we first reacted to the Upamecano news, is one centre-back would have to leave for him to come in. And one person I said that could potentially go is someone like Tosin because he's a free, which means for Chelsea, any money we get for him is a pure profit flip. Now, when you look at what the project's been like, you look at what the owners are like, that seems to tick a lot of boxes in terms of spreadsheet running, right? In terms of like, we got him for nothing, we're paying him 120 grand a week, someone comes in and buys him for 10 million, that's 10 million pure profit, or 15 million pure profit. That makes a lot of sense for the way that this club runs. It works well financially on the P&L, and then obviously we can use that money to go buy an Upamecano, depending on what Bayern Munich are willing to have for him because he's in the last 6 months of his contract, something like that. Does that make sense? Because I feel like that would work well for Chelsea in terms of using Tosin as leverage. Would I like to get rid of him? No. I feel like he does have a role to play in this central line until the end of the season, at least. I like to keep him for as long as possible. I think that he is one of the most experienced, well, he's definitely one of the oldest, but one of the most experienced defenders that we have, because he's played in the Premier League and he is, what, 27, 28. Now, that sort of age group is when you're meant to be coming into your prime. Now, we've all seen how good Tosin can be when he was playing very well last season with a bit of consistency, especially alongside someone like Levi Colwill. I think those two play very well together, and I'd like to see that again when Colwill comes back from injury. However, if we were to get rid of one of our centre-backs, it makes sense that he would be one to go because of the whole profit side of things, and then it does open the door for Chelsea to then go spend on someone like Upamecano who may be available. I still think that Chelsea are going to wait till the summer and see what happens with Upamecano personally. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Tosin. I don't see Chelsea offloading him in January, and if we're not going to go out and get a centre-back, then we'll just be a centre-back down. And I think the only thing that we would do if we're not going to go get a centre-back is we would recall one of our loanees like Anselmino or Mamadou Sarr, potentially. Because, yeah, why would we shoot ourselves in the foot for no reason? And at least that's in my opinion. I don't see why we would do that. So I'd really like to know your thoughts and opinions down below when it comes to Upamecano, the whole situation there, and Tosin. Is he going to be leaving in January? Is he going to be leaving in the summer? Does it make sense with my theory that if Tosin is to go, we can try and flip him for money to use that for Upamecano in January rather than the summer when a lot of clubs are going to go in for his signature? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. And that's the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that, you're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.